What's up, guys? Welcome to the show. Tyler's talking RC, Tyler C, Tyler P, and my buddy Olin over there. We're all hanging out. Check out Olin's sweet hat and New Wave sweatshirt. And I got the RC Madness hat, Tyler. He kind of let me down a little bit today.
But I have one and I have a hat. They're both very nice pieces.
Wore it all.
They're in the wash.
He wore it all week, and then didn't wear it today.
I forgot my mini.
Olin forgot his mini.
I'm naked.
It's okay. He's got a cool hat to make up for it. But anyway, check out the merch. Link down below if you guys want to get some of that. Yes, I think we even got a new signature edition Tyler P sweatshirt and t-shirt on there. What does it say on the back, Tyler?
Consistency is key from Tyler P.
Pro race tip.
It's not even my own quote. Marcy came up with it and was busting my chops. And I wake up Saturday morning and it's on a shirt.
Part of our pro race tip apparel lineup now.
Yeah.
Second pro race tip coming soon.
Part of the proceeds go to Olin's trailer.
Yes.
Eventually, one of us will be able to get a trailer.
Well,
not Tyler's trailer.
We can all share it.
The Motorman trailer.
Yeah. AC in the off-road season.
Yeah. That's the way to live.
It's coming soon.
It's a way to live. But anyway, moving on a little bit, we got upcoming events. This is February, so February freezer action. We got oval, on-road, and off-road. All the dates are linked down below under the events calendar, so check that out. And then up next after that is the Mini Nationals, which is going to be awesome. And I believe next week I'm going to have Dean and Jeff come on, and we're going to talk all about minis and the Mini National rules, setup, dates, times, the whole run through. So that should be pretty cool. But that'll be next week. This week, Tyler P is sitting in the middle today because he's going to be the star of the show. He's talking all about motors, his favorite thing. He's even got his whiteboard here, some equipment. We're going to talk about that, the technicalities. This is going to be a technical show. So if anybody's not into the technical stuff, I mean, hang out anyway, honestly. But
watch for the bloopers.
Tyler's going to go deep.
So it's all useful information. It's very good information.
It's going to be good stuff. Yeah. But Tyler's really breaking down motors, and I'm just letting him do the talking today. So we're all going to be just kind of learning something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I'm going to pass it off to Tyler, and I'm going to run the zoom in, zoom out today, try to help him with that. And yeah, floor is yours, my man.
All right. So before we started, he insisted we have a safe word if I get too into the details. So if you guys hear the safe word, you'll know why.
This happens if Tyler starts talking too much about some kind of winding or something. I don't even know what he's going to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm just going to kick him underneath the table.
Oh, all right.
Oh, okay. So watch for that. Okay, so I've had people come up to me at the shop and ask questions about, either looking at their motors or how to time or how to gear, things like that. First caveat up front, I am by no means an expert. I'm someone that likes to kind of get into the weeds of this hobby. I've played around and I've run a lot of motors in the last few months. So if you're watching this and you own a motor company, take what I say with a grain of salt. If I'm wrong, if anybody knows otherwise, I'm just trying to offer what I think I know, and hopefully most of it is accurate. So there's the disclaimer, caveat emptor.
Yeah, but none of us are professionals. We're just giving our opinions.
Yeah, this is true. But I wanted to say that.
Given the disclaimer.
Because then the pressure is off of me.
But you're still going to get those keyboard warriors still.
It's all right.
We'll try to help them out I'll take a good flame war.
Yeah.
But if you do have a serious question or anything that we didn't cover, throw a comment down because we will try to help you over there too as well.
Yep. Okay, so today we're talking about motors. I've got my notes here. All right, so the first thing I thought I would do is go over some of the basic and less basic tools that you can have for tuning motors or better understanding your motors. So the first one I'm going to show is something that most...
My turn.
Tyler's time to shine. So this is a motor analyzer. This one's by G-Force. Sky RC also sells one. I think that's what you guys get sometimes.
Yeah, the Sky RC one. It's essentially the same thing.
It's the same box, the same guts, just with a different label. This is a very useful tool, but the thing to take away is that this is not a dyno. Sometimes I'll hear people say, like, well, I ran my motor on the dyno and it was really good. After having run motors on this and run them on an actual dyno, which has a weight or a flywheel that the motor has to spin, I've had motors that looked terrible on this, because usually people judge by like kV. And when I put it on the dyno, it was a rocket. And when I put it on the track, it was a rocket. So you have to take what you get from this with a grain of salt. But what does it do? So this will give you the ability to read your sensor board. You'll basically see A, B, and C, and what the timing of each of those 3 legs reads. So it's a really good way of telling whether the sensor board in your motor is good, bad, or maybe even broken. You may not be able to get a sensible reading out of it. Most of the time, those 3 legs are not more than a few degrees apart. I've seen a few motors where they're like plus or minus 5. That is the exception. So that's probably one of the biggest things this can do for you, is it gives you a way of reliably setting and reading the timing on your motor. Because what is marked on the can of the motor on the outside is often off by as much as 5 to 10 degrees.
Really?
Which is a ton. So that's a big deal. And I'm going to double back on why that's a big deal in a minute. The other thing that this can do is it has a run mode where it tells you the kV of the motor and the amp draw of the motor unloaded, right? Because it's just sitting in this little cradle, freewheeling. So that gives you an idea of the kV of the motor. As you increase timing, kV goes up. As you decrease timing, kV goes down. But the current also changes when you make that adjustment. So some people might think, well, I got my motor, I'm going to crank the timing all the way up to 11. Not 11 degrees, but like 11 on the amplifier. I'm going to crank it all the way to 11 and get the most kV, and that's going to be the fastest motor. There is some truth to that. You will get the most RPM out of the motor. But your current draw is going to go way up. And
I did that on purpose.
Your current draw is going to go way up, and your motor efficiency is going to, what's it going to do? It's going to go way down.
I wanted to do up, but
I know. I could see the hesitation. So, and that's bad. If you throw too much timing in a motor, the efficiency goes into the toilet. And I don't mean like by a couple percentage points. I mean like 10, 15 percentage points. So the motor might feel really good for the first couple of minutes of the run, but that inefficiency is going to heat the motor up faster. It's going to kill your battery faster. So you're going to have a tremendous amount of fade in the car by the end of the run. It's going to feel like a dog by the time you're done. So this allows you to basically see how your timing affects your current draw unloaded and kind of try to find where you get the most kV without causing your current draw to skyrocket. So like, have you guys heard of the 6 amp rule?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says that has one of these. They say, well, if you set the motor so it draws 6 amps of current at whatever timing, it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of 50 degrees. That's the best point for the motor to operate at.
That's just free spinning too.
It's just free spinning. Initially, I thought that was a lot of shenanigans. It's a not terrible generalization. But the reality from what I've seen on the inertia dyno, the Mini Pro, which we did a video on at this table months ago, is that the sweet spot is really probably more like 4 to 5 amps on one of these. So that's where your efficiency is going to be pretty good, and you're going to be getting the most performance out of the motor without cranking up your current draw. So that's what the motor analyzer does, is it lets you read timing. It lets you accurately set the timing, so you make an adjustment, you don't like it. Well, this will tell you, you had 45 degrees in it. So you can go right back to that point. Maybe you fiddle around with the board, turning it back and forth until you get right back to where you want it to be. So that's great. And then, like I said, it tells you the free spinning current. So this is a very useful tool. People that have it, it gives you a lot more, I guess, tuning ability than if you were just going by feel on the track. You can do it that way. It's just a lot more trial and error.
Right. It just gives you real numbers instead of just a feeling.
Right. So like when I tune somebody's motor, I'll make a mark on the end bell with an X-Acto knife. So if they don't like what I did, they can put it right back there. Because I have to assume they don't have one of these to look at the data I gave them and say, oh, okay, well, it started out at 40 degrees of timing. I don't like what Tyler did. I'm going to put it back to 40. Well, 40 on the can is probably not 40 in real life.
Right.
So that's that. No safe word?
I think it was good.
Moving on. This is another tool that
I haven't even seen this one. I don't even know what this is.
yeah. So this one's a little more expensive. So these guys usually go for about $100. It runs off of a battery pack.
Try to remember to link the one that we sell down there.
Yeah,
it's the Sky RC one though.
Yeah, and I mean they function the same. They're very easy to use.
Yeah.
That checks the whole motor, sensor board, and generally performance. This little guy is the Phantom. I think they call it the fax machine. It's.
I didn't zoom in. I'm sleeping.
Tis, tis, tis.
Nice.
I'm gonna have to fire my cameraman.
Yeah,
Good.
it's all
It's
good.
hard to find.
I think this is around $250 to $300.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's for what it looks like. It's like a 3D printed little box with a display. It runs off 110 volt power, so you just plug it in the wall.
Is Phantom the only one that makes that? Or pretty?
I think so.
Readily available anyway.
I know, like, I don't think the Motorizer from Trinity does the same stuff that this does. So I'm going to say this might be a unicorn. I mean, you could also spend thousands of dollars on high-end electrical equipment to get the same readings, but $200 is kind of a steal. Anyway, what this does, this is for checking the stator of the motor only, which is the windings, your A, B, and C legs. And basically you have two sets of leads. One set of leads is for measuring the resistance of each leg. And one set of leads, I think I actually did it backwards, but that's okay, is for measuring the inductance of each leg. So the resistance is exactly what it sounds like. It's how resistive is the copper windings or the stator to the flow of electricity, and you get a reading in ohms. This actually reads in milliohms, so that's 0.001 ohms. So you can't use just like a multimeter or something like that. That's why this is kind of special, is because it's reading such low values. And for $250, something that can read down that low repeatedly is actually pretty cool. So generally speaking, for a motor, you want lower resistance to generate more power. And that's why it's a big deal to, like with outlaw motors. Okay, an outlaw motor has a thicker gauge copper winding. It's bigger diameter. So think of it as like a bigger garden hose. It's less of a restriction. So when I run an outlaw motor on this, the resistance values are a lot less than a regulation 17.5 or 13.5. So super useful for doing that, measuring the resistance, because you want all three legs to pretty much be dead nuts. You want them to be the same, because then the motor is balanced. You don't have one leg holding you back, which I tested a motor this morning that was like that. The other thing, the inductance value, and I'm not going to go down in the weeds on this, but it's basically an indication of how strong of a magnetic field can the stator create. So I think you want high inductance, low resistance for the theoretical, like, best performance.
Right.
I can't think of his last name, but Jay, who runs on Friday nights, had a brand not disclosed motor that he was uncertain about. So he gave it to me and he said, can you dyno it? It feels kind of soft. And it used to be a fast motor. When I did those checks with this thing, he had A and B legs that were like 18 milliohms, and the third leg was like 40.
What's good values for that?
17, 18 milliohms is pretty much like, for a 17.5, which is what this was, is pretty much like, that's where you want it to be. And honestly, most motors, that's exactly where they are.
Gotcha.
When you're talking like point of a milliohm, you're 4 zeros after the decimal point of an ohm. Like, it's way in the weeds. So to me, this tool is kind of more like, do I have a bad leg?
Right.
And he did. He had one leg that was twice the resistance of the other two legs, which means it was, I'm oversimplifying, but like half as powerful.
Right.
So when that poor motor is trying to fire, or the ESC is trying to fire it, you're getting like a hard push from the first leg, a hard push from the second leg,
like,
and then the third leg's like,
it's like
meh.
having a 3-cylinder engine with one spark plug not working.
Precisely. So that was kind of cool. That was the first motor I've ever tested that looked like that.
So do we know why it would test that way, or what causes that?
I can only or vibration. If the motor leads are flopping around in the can because they're not firmly fixed. Now we know what motor we're talking about.
Enough said.
Basically, inside most motors, you have these three sets of windings. Well, they have to terminate somewhere at the bottom and somewhere at the top. So if one of those joints, if a solder joint was bad, or if the, your solder tab, if the connection where the wire goes into it had gotten loose or something, now it's no longer a nice smooth flow. It's like a cold solder joint or something. So,
or it's not a consistent flow.
Precisely. So that was like the first time I had a eureka moment using this thing. For the most part, every motor I've touched, I've checked with that, and it's like, oh yeah, it looks just like all the other ones.
Well, finally had a bad one.
And now I finally had a bad one, so I sent him a message, and I was like, I'm not going to bother hooking this up to the dyno and running it because I know it's going to be
good.
Awful.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with the motor analyzer. There are going to be people out there that say these things are cheap Chinese junk, and you can't put trust in them. I've tested enough certified motors on mine, so a certified motor is supposed to be good sensor boards, right? That I have faith in my motor analyzer. So when it tells me I have a motor that's 45 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 degrees, I know I have a good sensor board.
Right.
When I test a motor and it looks like garbage, that's what this gets you. This is basically a way of checking your sensor board. This is a way of checking your stator. There is another tool, Phantom Cells, which people are probably more familiar with, that you take the rotor out of the motor, and you either put it in a little cradle and spin it, or you put it in a box and spin it, whatever. It tells you how strong.
Sorry.
So that's what these two tools are good for. Is this one will tell you if you have a bad timing board. This will tell you if you have a bad stator. There's another tool that also Phantom Cells and probably other places that basically you can check your rotor. So you have to take it out of the motor and then you insert it in this tool, and it reads the magnetic strength of the different poles, because I think each rotor is 2 poles, north and a south.
Right.
So if you have all of these tools, you should be able to take a motor apart, run all of the discrete tests, and know if that's a great motor or it's not. Or you can skip all that claptrap and you can run it on a dyno like I have at home, where it doesn't, if I have a motor that's a superstar on the dyno, I don't care how ugly the sensor board looks. I don't care if the stator looks like
worse.
X, Y, or Z. If it's fast, it's fast.
Right.
Maybe it won't be fast for long, but, whatever.
Well, fast and torquey.
Right. Yeah, and so we're gonna get there. Hopefully I don't get safe worded.
You're doing good. You're going good.
So
This is Tyler's special.
you guys can tell by the color of my cheeks that I'm
The Tyler P special.
taking this one seriously. I was actually a little nervous.
You're good.
You're good.
All right, so that's tools. So now what I wanted to get into is a little bit more of the insides of the motor and maybe some things that people may have misconceptions about, and explain what I've seen from all the motors that I've dynoed and run. I've probably put 200 or 300 pulls on that dyno.
Yeah. Do you want a motor for a visual, or? I got that Crowley one right over there.
You mean the 21.5, 17.5?
Maybe a good example.
Yeah, you want to grab it?
Yeah, it's right here. You can keep going.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about is I want you guys to understand what timing is. And again, I'm not going to go way into the weeds, but I think this is important because it's something that not everybody gets. So most of you may know that you have inside the motor a sensor board.
Is it sensitive?
It's a sensitive sensor board.
Yeah.
3 times.
If we got any tools in here, I'll pull it apart so they can see the parts.
So,
It's up to you.
I think we're gonna be okay.
All right. Would you like me to zoom in, boss?
Yeah, give it a shot, cameraman.
Too much zoom.
That's good.
Still working on my zoom skills.
So basically, when you're adjusting a motor, you're gonna loosen screws on the end bell, and you've got a little needle that tells you, how much timing the motor thinks it has. And you're gonna turn this, and that's gonna change the timing. But what are you doing when you do that? So inside the motor, you have this little printed circuit board wafer. and on it are 3 magnetic pickups. Every time a magnet goes by one of those pickups, it creates a signal, and that's what your sensor wire is designed to basically send that signal back to the ESC. So as the ESC is firing ABC, whatever, it's getting feedback saying, yep, I moved this many degrees. No, now I moved this many degrees. And it's basically just walking around. Oh, this is really backwards hard to do. It's basically walking around the sensor board. It's triggering the A and then the B and then the C. Here's why this matters when you start adjusting timing. There are 3 sensors. There are 2 magnets on the rotor. Again, if I'm wrong, please say so down, but I'm down in the comments, but I'm pretty sure I've got this. There's 3 sensors, there's 2 poles on the rotor. So 3 times 2 is 6. You have a total of 360 degrees of rotation. So 360 divided by 6 is
6.
0, 60.
I didn't study.
So it is not impossible, but it's absolutely unadvisable to have more than 60 degrees of timing, of actual timing, not just on the can, but like read with a device in a motor. Because what you're doing is if you have, say, 61 degrees, you're firing those legs 1 degree sooner than optimal. And you're actually beginning to hurt performance. So like sometimes I'll see guys that have their motor set to 55 or 60 degrees on the can.
No good.
And it's like, did you set that on the can or did you put it on an analyzer and, maybe the can is reading?
Well, it goes to 60. Why wouldn't you run it at 60?
Right. The problem is you will go so far over the top with your timing that you're not just like throwing away efficiency and all that stuff, but I'm not going to say you can hurt the motor because you really can't, but you're going to make the likelihood of overheating it just being slow
a severe point of diminishing return.
Yeah, like you're off the cliff.
Yeah.
You found the edge of the flat earth.
If you're running the motor for hot for too long, it is going to hurt the motor.
Well, right. So that's why I say like the temp is really the only. So you could run a motor with too much timing, as long as you don't overheat it, you can get away with it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like
you can't do that for
There's
a
no
5 minute
point,
race.
though.
there's no point to it.
So what
Exactly.
you're saying is say it gets past, it's 45 degrees was optimal, and you're starting to push it past it, you're literally just causing more heat in the motor for no reason.
Well, and it's not just that, but up to a point, you will keep getting more kV and more RPM.
But it's not
And
usable.
then it's going to start to fall off once you go past that theoretical max.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it'll feel faster, and then it'll fall off.
Okay.
So you can possibly lose your low end speed because you're
going to lose. Yeah,
Everything.
It would be interesting if I could find a motor that like actually will go past 60 and like play around with it on the track. But anyway, so that's why it's important to have the right tools to set your timing, because you can't trust what's on the can, on the end bell. And if you go too far,
This one goes.
you're hurting yourself. You're working backwards. So that's why I wanted to do this little doodle and show that.
It's beautiful.
So thank you. I have a liberal arts degree.
It's finally coming useful.
Finally. That and basket weaving.
Oh, we're still zooming in.
All right, so we talked about timing. Timing's basically, it's a way of physically, timing on the motor. It's a way of physically getting the motor or the ESC to fire those legs either sooner or later. So what that allows you to do is move the power curve. It moves the peak and it moves the overall RPM range. And I'm going to try to illustrate that in a minute. So we talked about timing. We talked about why 60 degrees is a magic number.
Can I throw in a question for you?
Sure.
I get this sometimes. If, depending on the timing you have in your motor and your gearing, does that affect anything?
Can you be more specific?
So say you overgeared your
I got it. Which ocean?
so say you you're overgeared.
Yep.
And you turn up your timing on your motor.
Yep.
Is that going to cause any issues? Or
Absolutely.
if you're undergeared and your timing is too high, is that going to cause issues also?
So general comments is you're better off being undergeared because you're making the motor's not working as hard. So if you're undergeared with a ton of timing, The motor's just it's not optimized,
Right.
but it probably is. It's definitely safer than being over geared and over timed.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, when timing goes up, gearing needs to go down. And when I say gearing, I mean like your pinion size.
Right.
And if you have less timing, you need more pinion.
Correct.
So a good example is most guys here with two-wheel drive buggies are rolling around with 28 to 30 tooth pinions.
Correct.
My Trinity has a 35 tooth pinion on it
And that means you have low timing.
because because I set the timing to have more low end. So, it can carry the gear, but I also need that gear to have some straightaway speed.
Right.
But it's a trade-off. So and we're going to get there. Okay, so we talked about 60 degrees, why that's not it's not good to go past it. So adjusting the timing, again, I think most people here understand how to do that. You have 3 screws on the end of the motor, maybe you have 2.
I will say
I don't know if it'll focus that close.
Yeah, it might not.
there's some motors where you have to take the.
It's set to focus on faces.
You have to take out the screws in the front.
On the other end, yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, you're going to loosen screws, and then you can clock one end of the motor.
Correct. And if you're not sure, just ask.
Yeah, most people here are dangerous enough and willing to try it.
Yeah.
One thing that I think a lot of people might overlook, so on this Corelli motor, Corelli? On this black motor, there are 3 screws. And I've seen people sometimes, they make an adjustment, and then they go down, they dog down the first screw, the second screw, and the third screw. When you do that, you're cocking the sensor board. So another reason why one of these is useful is what you ideally want to do is tighten each one a little bit, almost like doing like wheel lug nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to work your way around until you're snug. So you're pulling down or pulling up the sensor board evenly.
Mm-hmm.
Then, if you have one of these, you can run it and see whether the sensor board, is basically even. If you really want to go nuts, you can start, loosening one screw at a time and trying to see what moves what leg.
Right.
And you can try to really fine tune it. But generally speaking, if you're plus or minus a degree, you're good. So that's a side note about adjusting timing. Tighten your screws evenly. Understand that your end bell is not always going to give you an accurate timing reading. Yeah. The only other thing as far as sensor boards go, you'll see with certified or tuned motors, they'll talk about, shimming the sensor board, or really what they're shimming is the rotor. So you have your sensor board and then you have your rotor that's operating some distance away. The closer you can get the end of the rotor to the pickups, these little guys, the better a signal they're going to get and they're going to send to the ESC. So closing that gap is a good thing. The problem is all of these motors have a little bit of walk back and forth on the rotor. So you've got to be careful that you don't shim it so close that the rotor can now hit those magnetic pickups or damage them or whatever. And all the motors that I've tuned and played with, I have yet to feel the need to take it apart and play with the shims. Most motors out of the box are going to, like I said, they're going to be plus or minus a couple degrees. So unless you are really comfortable taking a motor apart and you have the right washers and Teflon shims and all that stuff, if you're maybe going to do ceramic bearings.
Trinity makes nice ones. I've messed with it before.
Yeah. Unless you're confident in doing that, I would say probably don't need to. If your motor is a good motor, it's going to be that way without playing with the shimming. If it's a turd, it's going to be a turd even with perfect shimming.
Right.
So that's that.
Perfectly shimmed turd.
Perfectly shimmed turd. You can maybe polish it later too.
Aww.
All right. So now this is kind of probably more the meat of the matter that people wanted to talk about. When you change timing, you're changing.
Listen up, kids.
Basically, you're changing the power curve, the torque curve, and the efficiency curves. All right. So, I guess I'll do the easiest one first, and that's efficiency.
It's kind of fun watching Tyler draw. He's doing a graph. Rainbow.
Butterfly.
Sounds like.
That was my next guess.
Okay. So let's pretend this is an efficiency curve.
Not a
I
butterfly.
don't want
And over here is low throttle. And when the curve starts,
try to follow that graph.
it's,
opposite.
yeah, this is so hard.
Don't
Basically, this is what I'll see on my dyno over the course of a run. Most motors will have a sweet spot where the efficiency peaks, and then as you go further out on RPM, which is, oh, this is so bad.
It's
When you go
completely backwards.
when you
It's
go
hard.
this way, your efficiency falls off. So like at the end of the straightaway, when you're fully wound out, your motor is at a lower efficiency than in the infield when you're trying to like clear a triple or something like that. So anyway, that's the general nature of an efficiency curve. Maybe I should do this. We'll say that's 100% and that's 0. What happens when you start playing with timing is you may find that your efficiency, yeah, give me that zoom. You may find that the efficiency goes up or down depending on your adjustment. So most motors I've seen, most 17.5s I've run, have a sweet spot between 40 and 50 degrees. That's where they're going to make peak efficiency, and that's where you're going to get the most low end and balance, high end RPM. So that would be this is so hard. That would be this upper line here. So this would be the theoretical, say like a 45 degree timing mark, where that motor is, for like
Peak performance.
peak. We'll say for this band like this. So there's our middle band.
Optimal performance.
It's above 60% efficiency.
Aw, I like optimal.
On my dyno, that is optimal because it's also considering that calculation.
Same thing, bro.
That calculation is also including the ESC that's in the dyno.
I was busting you.
This is, Tyler's serious right now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Don't be screwing.
This is real talk. Only.
Don't be screwing with him right now.
All right. Anyway, so the point is when I tune a motor, part of what I'm trying to balance is how do I get the efficiency as high as possible, and how do I get the most power and torque while I'm doing that. So this is usually what your efficiency curves look like. It's, if you start with really low efficiency, timing, your efficiency will actually be less. It's not like if I go all the way down on timing, I get the most efficiency. There is a point in the timing range where your efficiency...
The timing works both directions. All the way down, not good. All the way up, not
Exactly.
good. Finding the middle ground is key.
It is key. Yeah, so I'm slowly derailing my own train of thought. Anyway, so part of what you want to look for is efficiency. The reason why that matters is efficiency is in part dictating how much your motor gets hot, how much power you are wasting from the battery, and that contributes to the fade over the course of a run. So when I tuned my Trinity certified X Factor whatever, I think I got in the low to mid 70s for efficiency. A motor with timing cranked all the way up to 5960 would be as low as 55%. That's a 20% efficiency loss. And that's massive when you're talking about pulling, tens of amps or, 50 or 100 amps at high load scenarios. That's going to have a big impact on how fast your battery dies. And I run a shorty low CG battery, so I don't have a 6,000 milliamp battery that I can just waste over the course of a run because I want to time the bejesus out of my motor.
Right.
So anyway, so that's timing. There is a sweet spot. As you increase timing, your efficiency goes up, and then as you keep going, you're basically trading efficiency for more RPM and a stretched power band. So,
Part 2.
now we're going to look at power curve. This is going to be a little bit easier. So this is a normal power curve. And people who are maybe into hot rods and cars, you might think, well, that's basswards. An electric motor makes peak torque and peak power at max load, which is going to be low RPM. So over the course of a dyno pull, the power and torque are actually coming down with RPM. Whereas an internal combustion engine, it's
up.
it's going to go up, and then, until you hit valve float, and then it might, tip over. So here's our power curve for a given timing value. Doesn't matter what. As you increase timing, I kind of did myself a disservice. Start over.
Ah,
All right,
makes sense now.
much better. I like this curve. I just needed room to grow. So here's our curve. If I was to increase timing, what's going to happen is you are going to lose low end peak. So you're going to have a little bit less, so maybe instead of 220 for power, you're going to end up at 210. So that sounds like, well, why would I give away 10, whatever your unit of measure is?
10 motor units.
10 motor, 10, yeah. And the reason that you may want to do that is, so you look at the dash line. The dash line after a certain point here is the higher of the two lines. So that means for the remaining half of my power curve right here, the top end, that motor with more timing is going to pull way harder. So this is basically a motor with a little bit more bottom end versus a motor with a whole lot more top end by the time you time it. Right. So timing a motor with more timing takes that power band, it knocks the top off a little bit. So you lose some of that peak, but it stretches it. It holds the power curve up longer over a larger RPM range. That's why when you run turbo timing in an ESC, that's basically what that ESC is doing to your timing. At a certain point in the RPM range, it's like boosting or holding up that power curve so that it doesn't fall off as fast. So that's why it feels like almost like, like turbo, like in a car, like it just keeps wanting to pull. That's because that timing is being added, and it's keeping the motor from falling off and not pulling as hard.
Just pushing the current to it?
Well, not pushing.
Speed control timing to me is just magic at this point.
It's the way it's firing the legs.
I understand the mechanical timing in the motor, but speed control timing, I'm not going to even lie to you guys. I have no idea what's going on.
It's the same thing, though.
I know what it does. I know how to use it. It's magic.
That's why the sensor
It's
list.
just crazy to me that it's such a significant increase in speed.
Well,
ESC timing is crazy.
It is. So in a perfect world, you would have an ES, like if you wanted to get the absolute best performance out of a motor ever, you would have an ESC that you could basically program like dynamic timing over a full range. The turbo timing that we use right now is relatively simple. I want it to come on at full throttle above this RPM, and I want you to add this much timing over this many milliseconds.
Yeah.
But that's what it's doing. It's adding timing to the motor by firing those legs, ABC, a little bit earlier than the motor would have it fire on its own.
I got you.
So that's why the drag guys like it so much, like doing the boost and the ESCs.
It gives them an insane amount of RPM because they're running 3-turn motors.
Right, but it's doing it at different stages.
Right.
So you know how the
speed control is doing it.
Right.
Yeah,
so they have those 3 stage
ranges.
or 4 stage. So
they do.
Yes.
Well, that's because they don't need all the bottom end.
Correct. They just need it all at the top. So it kicks in at
But we're gearing
a second or a point second.
We gear them super super tall.
Right.
Because of the RPMs.
Correct.
I mean, it's like I don't even know how many RPMs I was pushing, like 50, 60,000.
Yeah, that's insane.
But just imagine by playing with that
I think it was even more. I
ESC
think it was
timing,
getting in the 80s with
it's
it.
kicking in. So you're not losing traction right off the line.
Right.
It's kicking in when you're already rolling.
Well, and again, if you were to throw all of that timing on a motor at low RPM, the only part of the equation you're getting is where you kill your bottom end.
Gotcha.
Right? So in a perfect world, you want an ESC that gives you that minimal optimal timing on the low end.
Right.
And then continues to add more timing and more timing as RPM builds.
Which is what the drag speed controls are doing.
Right.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
The DRK's got 5 stages of timing in it, which will kicks in at different levels, different throttle amounts.
Right. So it's
So it's kind of what you were the dynamic thing is kind of
Right.
a little bit of a rough version of that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
big time.
So anyway, so there's the short explanation. I'll stop there. As you add timing, you're moving some of your horsepower down the plot, down the curve to the higher RPM.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. So for if you're outdoors on the turf track, where you are spending more time, because like every motor can only give you this much RPM. So if you're on a long, a track with a lot of straightaways, a lot of rolling curves, you're not like coming to a stop and then hammering out of a 90. If it's a flowing track, you're spending most of your life on the top 50% of your RPM range. So where was I going with this?
I don't know. I'm just paying attention.
Oh, timing.
Kind of.
So if you're spending more time in that range, you may want to run more timing because it props up the power curve in that last 50%.
Gotcha.
If you're in a track like the
So-
carpet track,
Yeah. Okay.
It was
where it's always low end,
right.
So
You-
like an on-road situation, you're probably better off being in the higher end of things because it's more. There's no jumps, and you're trying to stay with more momentum. So you're probably going to
If
be
it-
the top more towards the top.
if it's more of a flowing track, I would say probably yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep. It's kind of like a two-stroke dirt bike. That's a motor with a lot of timing.
Right.
Is like it wants to be, wide open and
at
in
all
that
times.
very narrow power band. Whereas if you lower the timing, now you have a motor with more bottom end, more grunt. And that's like I've yet to find a motor that pulls like that Trinity I have, tuned the way that I've tuned it. I do want to try turning the timing down on the R1, but anyway, so that's that.
Did you try the Phantom?
I did run a Phantom.
Okay.
Decent torque.
Oh.
Very good power.
I didn't want to talk about that. I can get you in trouble on camera.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Trouble for real. We
I
ain't
haven't-
sponsored by nobody.
I haven't heard the safe word yet.
Oh,
Keep it
sorry.
real. We ain't sponsored by nobody
That's
except
true.
RC Madness.
Hashtag free agents.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of touched on tuning for track conditions. So, certain track conditions may warrant a little bit more timing to prop up that power curve, but then you have to adjust your gearing, and it's
Yeah.
a whole game.
You're probably better off going up and down a tooth on the pinion, to be honest with you.
Not necessarily.
I think so.
Could you? Well, you.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, because you could use the same opinion and just adjust the timing. It would give you the
Well,
same.
I'm not Tyler P. I can't dyno tune my motor every time we do a track change.
No, but it would give. But you know what you're gaining. So if you understand the whole dynamics of how the motor works, you already understand timing. So on a track with a big layout, you have to adjust your timing based on the track. So you already know
I'm not
it's.
gonna.
Yeah, but it's easier to adjust the timing than it is to take the pinion off and put it back on, do the mesh and all that other stuff.
I would say in a perfect world,
Yeah, but you don't know exactly where you're setting it though.
You do.
I was putting it on this stuff.
But that's what I'm saying. If
Right.
if you already have all this stuff and you know what if you know where to set it, you already have a leg up against the average Joe.
I just make up for it in raw skill though.
that's true. He's got you there, Doc.
Alright.
No, I honestly, thinking out loud, if I knew I had to run the same car and the same motor on two very different tracks, say I'm running here on a Friday night and I'm running somewhere else on a Tuesday night, and the somewhere else has like a flowing track, the way I would dyno the motor, I would be looking for what's my timing setting for really good efficiency and torque here, and then I would try to find a setting where I trade a little bit of efficiency for more top end.
On the larger track.
And that would be for the other track. Take your knife, make 2 scribe marks, so you know which is which, and now you don't need the tool. You
Tyler
can.
P's always thinking.
That's what happens in here. It's scary, and I have a headache now.
Tyler P's got
An
every
answer for
track
you.
scribed into
So-
the back of his motor.
Yeah, it's
RCM, RCHR.
yeah, all the places I've never been
Oh,
to.
this is changed time. Okay, we're at RC Madness. We'll change RC Madness setting.
So so as far as tuning a motor goes, you can either do it with all of the equipment, so you can kind of see the matrix and you have a really good feel for what the motor is doing, or the way that also works but is more trial and error is just tune by lap times. You can play with timing as long as you don't go too far one way or the other. You can play with gearing as long as you don't go too far one way or the other. Ultimately, we want the fastest lap time. So as long as you can turn consistent laps, and then just change your motor settings, you can figure out all of the stuff that I have $1,000 worth of equipment to figure out. It's just more trial and error.
It is, but then, so when I do that, I have to put, so say my first test, I had the timing at like 50.
Yep.
And I had fresh tires when I did it. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to change it to 45. Now you have to put fresh tires.
Now those are one-run tires.
Right, so you have to put fresh tires on because you're not going to have the same output as you did when you had the...
Science.
I'm just saying. So it's kind of easier just to...
This is a lot more, I think it is easier.
Right, and it's cheaper in the long run because you buy this once and you're good.
Well, or you walk up to me and you ask me to run a motor.
That's my current method.
I've tuned plenty of motors for free, so that's going to have to eventually stop.
Well, I was just trying to save you.
No, but I mean...
My motor slow. Dog, you got
not my fault.
Dog, you got a dead pole in this baby.
Corner speed is your friend. So yeah, so tune for the track, tune for lap times. There's also, in my opinion, a pervasive myth that motor temp tells you everything. It doesn't. My Trinity.
Really hot.
True.
When it overheats and blows out the front motor bearing.
What if I'm flipped
Has that
over?
happened?
It may have
Well,
happened.
what if I'm flipped over and just hitting the throttle, waiting for the marshal?
Freewheeling really helps build heat.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So
Temp only tells you if you're going to kill your motor.
It did.
doing this.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to get their attention, maybe they're asleep or they're talking to their buddies. But don't think just because your motor, like my Trinity comes off after a 5-minute run at like 110. Most people would look at that and go, throw a couple of teeth on it. But the lap times go down if I do that. That motor is where it wants to, and that's because it's tuned for efficiency. It doesn't heat up as much.
Right.
So temp only tells you if you're going to smoke your motor. It does not necessarily tell you.
If you already have smoked your motor.
Also, yes. So just a caveat there, and that's all complicated, of course, by how many fans do you have on your motor.
Temp is good, but
You know.
it doesn't really tell you much except for if you're hurting
So I
stuff.
can run more than one fan on my motor.
What is your maximum
I mean,
temp?
if you want to be a superstar,
What's your maximum temp? I get asked that a lot. I know what mine is, but I don't know what yours is.
there is absolutely no reason for a motor to come off the track after, we'll say 6.5 minutes above like 130, 135.
Wow, yours is a lot lower than mine. I usually say 160.
I'm aiming for 200.
I've gotten to 200 several times.
I'm aiming for 2.
I didn't know it was a contest.
Well,
Gotta
I'm just saying,
have goals.
Go big and go home.
I'll tell you what, that Trinity was glowing last time I took it off the track.
Well, that's
Like a NASCAR rotor.
It was burning the carpet right off.
well. I was doing burnouts in the pits with it.
On a side note, sorry, not to cut it off. Motor temperatures, we took a track to Slash outside on the hot oval day once and just hammered batteries through it.
Oh,
We got the motor to 270 degrees.
VXL or brushed?
The brushed motor.
Oh, I got you beat.
We could smell it from like 10 feet away.
I put a 3-cell
What you got?
on a VXL,
Sure.
and I was doing burnouts up and down my street.
Just cooked it.
I have too much mechanical empathy to hear this.
So you know what was so crazy? The car was going, and then it just stopped, and just
Rotor
rolled.
Oh.
Dude, that Slash motor was still going.
Oh, I could
We ran the next oval race.
Because that's because the windings, which are the thing that, so the magnets, if you get magnets hot enough, they're going to lose their magnetism.
it was a little weakened after
So
that.
it probably weakened, but the thing that probably was working for that brushed motor is that the windings, which are the epoxy coated copper, those spin in a brushed motor. So it was kind of trying to cool itself.
Yeah,
Whereas with a brushless motor, if you're reading 270 at the outside,
it's hotter than
it's the windings that are screaming hot, and your magnet's probably cooked too. But
We just
yeah,
had it up against a wall.
well, I can't do that.
Yeah.
We thought we were gonna melt the training case.
Well, this was
It's
back in
plastic.
This was back in my beginning days before I understood.
We were well aware of what we were doing.
It was fun. It looked cool.
Two completely different perspectives.
think
Owen's like,
it'll-
we didn't know any better. We
You
wouldn't have done it.
You
And
think
Tyler's
it'll
like,
melt
we
the
knew exactly
tranny
what we were
case?
doing.
I don't know. Keep going. See if it melts it. You got another battery? It didn't melt it. It smelled bad though.
Oh yeah,
It was sweet.
It was.
But anyway, I'm gonna
And then-
pineapples myself on that one.
There's the safe word,
Yeah.
and I didn't get it either.
I had to
Pineapples.
safe word myself. I'm cutting off Tyler here.
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
A little brevity or a little lightheartedness is probably good since I've been
Hammering with facts.
I've been Emmett Browning this whole thing.
That's alright.
Um,
So burnouts in the parking lot.
So
Later.
afterwards, we can test your Honda's new timing belt.
I was talking about the V63.
No.
Do it mine.
All right, so that was tune for lap times. Temps only tell you about motor health. The only other thing that I was going to talk about really briefly is kind of more of the philosophical side of things. Option parts. So ceramic bearings, aluminum screws.
Worth every penny.
They're if the motor has them, that's awesome. If it doesn't, that's not keeping you out of the A main.
It's not?
Typically, sorry.
Darn it.
Typically, because I did this years ago with
Just killed my
a
hopes
motor.
and dreams.
I bought the aluminum screw kit and I bought the
Keep aim for
ceramic
life.
bearings. And on the analyzer, they were
See.
only worth a few hundred RPM. So,
C-Man for life.
C for Clokey.
Man.
Yeah, so don't get super hung up on option parts.
They're not going to change your life. They're nice, and
it's
they
not.
do technically work better, but an aluminum screw and a ceramic bearing is not going to give you an extra lap on the track. It might help you sleep at night a little bit, but that's your problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those like, well, at least I'm not leaving that on the table. Like, that's all that's going to...
Well, I can't blame it on that anymore.
Right. Guess I'll have to work on my
Basically,
driving.
you're just getting rid of your excuses, so be careful doing that.
Right.
Right.
You need
it's
to have
it's
a good-
always... Not,
You need to have a good backlog of excuses.
Man, I was running on scrubs. My tires were no good.
Nah, these tires are...
Man, I'm running that locked Rotor 17.5 from 18 years ago,
See, that's why I don't maintain my car. It's like, this
I
thing
just say somebody
just got no
took me
diff
out.
fluid in it. That's why I
Someone took
lost.
me out. Yeah, he doesn't maintain his car. He farms that out.
I need an excuse,
Must be nice.
Tyler P gets bored. I gotta give him something to do.
Yeah, so I mean, that kind of like, that weaves in a little bit to the what motor should I buy question.
All of them.
That has got to be the most common question I hear at this place is, what motor's in your car?
And I'll give you the answer for that. You're gonna have to buy one of each motor because you're gonna have to decide for yourself which one's the fastest. And if you own one of each motor, then you don't have to ask anymore.
Yeah, they're like Pokemon.
Yeah, collect them all.
So that's what the hobby shop guy tells you.
What?
What's your take?
No, I would never.
My take is whatever motor the faster guys are running is the best motor.
Wow,
obviously.
you're just a...
Wow, full on follower.
So are you a Patriots fan too?
Ugh.
Tread.
Too, too soon?
Tread. I'm still emotional over the...
I'm still emotional.
Over the
Go Buccaneers?
demise of Brady and now the retirement of Brady. I was hoping you'd come back and like finish.
Brady, no Brady.
I'm keying your car.
Wow, it's okay.
It's the least of its worries.
I guess I hit a nerve.
Putting sugar in your tank.
Do me a favor.
That truck will not know the difference. It'll be like, oh, this goes great with my glycol.
No one knows. It just eats everything.
Yeah.
So you buy what the fast guys have.
No, I'm just joking.
Olin buys a new motor every week.
I don't care. Listen.
Ooh,
So
LRP.
what do you have right
Ooh,
now?
Uh,
Phantom?
No, he's LRP right now, ain't he?
No.
You don't hear me on LRP anymore.
Jump ship.
Trinity.
Trinity?
My man.
How did you get a Trinity? I don't even know.
A couple weeks ago.
He had to buy it somewhere else because
Olin
he didn't
has-
want to be ridiculed.
Olin has tried every single motor.
Yeah.
Well, so
It has proved that it does not get you into the A
oh,
main.
that hurts. So that's literally what I've done for the last few months.
I'm definitely blowing up your truck.
That's the C main for Olin right
Never
there.
notice.
Let's get a new one.
I
I'll get whatever the fast guys have.
if somebody asked me that question, I would say the popular motor at the track is popular for a reason. So the Phantom,
Trinity.
the Trinity, to a lesser extent, the R1's popularity doesn't reflect how strong they are. I think they're a little bit less well known.
Can I react my statement?
Redact.
Redact. All jokes aside,
I'll react to it.
you have to get a motor that kind of like fits your driving style. Because
This is deep.
Yeah.
I'm being serious now.
I'm being serious.
Oh, you know the movie in
Take a moment. Let me zoom in on
Old
you
School
all.
when Will Ferrell gets serious and he's like, I blacked out. That was that point.
Guys.
All right, all jokes aside, but you have to get a motor that fits your driving style. Because some people,
What's your driving style?
I'm kind of like a laid back driver. I'm not like I don't like push or like aggressive. I'm not an aggressive driver. I'm kind of like a.
Well, you've tried every single motor.
Yeah.
That's way more philosophical than I thought this was going to get.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if you have to get one that fits your driving style, so it's trial and error. Because some motors are good for like hitting it and going, and then some are just better for like lackadaisy driving.
I like the one.
So, out of the box, perhaps. But is it possible that all motors could be tuned
You
to
could,
behave differently?
But that's the problem. Most people don't want to do that. They rather just
I
like,
don't-
so and so's running that one. Let me go grab that one.
Well, and so that's the other thing I've seen is like
that was literally what you just said a minute ago.
Yeah, but now I'm being serious.
Oh, you weren't
he
serious.
means it now.
Oh, I wasn't serious before.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have an old and serious disclaimer light.
Oh,
I'm serious now.
It's flashing. It's going on the bottom of the screen.
Before I wasn't serious.
Just
now
like
I'm serious.
scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the nice things about like if people like if you want to run an open class or like a mod class. Well, do I need a $200 certified motor? No. If your motor's slower than you want it to be, you go spend another $70 on a Sky RC motor and get one turn less.
Or you go, because that's all. The modified motors really don't matter.
Right.
It's the stock ones that you have to pay more attention to.
Right, because you're forced to have a 17.5
Correct.
that is legal, which means there's all that effort going into finding a way to make a motor faster.
Correct.
Yeah.
Stock racing always has that stuff.
If you're not like running ballistic lap times, the $200 motor is
Not going to save you.
spend that extra $50, $75 on tires in
Just
practice.
get the one that matches the color of your speed control. Because if you can't be fast, you at least gotta look good.
Or have gold screws.
You know what I'm saying?
Just saying. Bling it out.
Gold motor, gold screws.
Bling it out.
Can't be fast. You gotta look good.
That's my whole motto.
That's what he has to. That has to be his model.
Yeah. I'm here for the style points.
I'm literally without words.
Long silence.
Yeah. So, I probably struggled through some of the explaining of that stuff. Using the whiteboard in reverse messed me up. So
It's
if
not
any of
easy.
this stuff didn't make sense to you guys, or if you want me to clarify, like Tyler said, put it in the comments. Or if you're at the track, you see me, feel free to come up and ask questions. I'll try to better explain as best I can. At the end of the day, don't cook your motor. Play around with timing and gearing. Don't go too far either way, and you'll learn something. That's the takeaway. There are plenty of tools out there if you want to get into the science of it.
Where's the average timing set on these motors?
I have seen motors come out of the box with 30 to like actual. So I'm,
No, I
I'm
mean
not.
no. I mean you. Like, where are you actually setting the majority? On average, where does timing go?
Oh, well, it's like I said earlier. I think most motors want to be somewhere between 40 and 50.
40 and 50.
My Trinity, I have it set at 40. It was pretty happy at 43. My R1 came out of the box at 45 and was a star. Like, I didn't even want to touch it. That's kind of like the general sweet spot, which there should be a general sweet spot because
They're all stock motors.
they're all 17.5. They all have
Right.
approximately the same resistance when you check them on the box. So these motors should behave similarly. The difference between a killer motor and like an average motor is still not much. You know, I could give one of my not great motors to Steve Fume and he would still spank me. So it's like
We're splitting hairs, basically.
horsepower does not buy wins.
Not
I
crashing.
would.
One might say consistency is key.
Oh yeah, we keep coming back to that. I'm not doing that on purpose either, but it is. So
it is.
as long as your motor does what it needs to do and is not,
On fire.
somehow broken, it's probably not your problem. But
Slow is fast.
Tyler
It
P.
is.
laying some truth on you. Your motor's probably not your problem.
and if you want me to check it, I'll check it anyway.
But it doesn't mean it can't be better. And there is obviously a plethora of tools to check these motors.
Yep.
Tyler P. having even more at home and probably more coming in. It's just a fun. It's a side of the hobby that is its own hobby.
Yep.
It's such a massive hobby that there's little hobbies in between.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no need, if you want to do competitive racing, there's no need to do all this stuff, really. Tyler P. just really loves doing this motor stuff. He even knows way more than me about it, and he's having fun with it. But like you said, motors,
It's not necessary.
it's,
This is not necessary.
yeah. I could have a $200 motor in my car. Oh, I did have a $200
You
motor
did.
in my car, and
You
I'm
were
sure
still a chump.
I was racing. He's not wrong, dude. And And Tyler had,
I'm
or someone
sorry.
had a $70 motor out there, and they probably beating me.
Well, dude, so that gold motor that I showed on a podcast a couple of weeks back,
That's my point.
that was a $70 motor. It looked almost as good as my Trinity, and I made the mistake of telling Sean, I got a motor you might like. He put it in the car, and he's like, I think I'm going to keep it.
I think I'm going to keep it.
And he was faster with it. So I'm literally helping other people beat me. But, you know, if other people are having more fun, then that's the goal. So
Because you can, people. What I've seen people do who don't have these tools, they listen to their car on the straightaway.
Oh, you know what?
Oh,
That's a good point.
His car sounds faster.
No, but they can hear it still winding up towards the end of the
Yep.
straight. So if it's still winding, that means you can still go up on the timing. But if it's
go down.
I mean, go down on the timing.
The gearing mostly is what you
Yeah.
want to play
Yes.
with there. But
But I'm saying is like I've heard people like
Yep.
listen to their car on the straightaway.
Yep.
Just go, and adjust their timing based on what they hear.
Well, that's like dating myself, but like with old school hot rods, like a carbureted hot rod with a V8 or whatever. Yeah, you can have a wideband O2 sensor, and you can have all these like high-end instruments to read what the fuel and all that stuff is doing. But they're like, there's probably an 80-year-old guy that'll tune it with a single screwdriver and by seat of pants feel.
Right.
So there are like free ways that you can kind of tune in to what is going on. That's actually a really good one. I always talk to people about that.
And another thing with being fast on the track, everybody else's car always looks faster than yours when you're watching it on the track.
Yeah, true.
I tell that to everybody. Man, his car looks so fast. I'm like, I get the same exact stuff in my car. And then you drive your car down the straight, and they're like side by side. They always look faster when you're watching somebody else's car on the track.
Yep.
Thing cranks down the straight. You're like, wow. You're like, nah. They're all the same speed, more or less. I mean, granted, somebody might be having out the mod car out there or something like that, but if you know the person driving,
Right.
so don't. I always get that one. It always looks faster, man.
Yeah.
Don't chase a dragon.
Almost got me.
The biggest thing you can do is literally just practice with your car.
Yep.
And work on your tire game. I think the tire game is way more important than the motor game.
Yeah.
This season it definitely is.
Well, the setup.
Just in yeah. But I'm just saying tires for me is
Right.
probably one of the biggest factors as far as like what condition they're in, how the track is.
Yep.
Just getting the car to stay on the ground as opposed to how fast it's getting down the straight or out of the
Doesn't
corner.
matter, yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Not saying it doesn't matter, but I think there's other things that you really need to get dialed
Focus
in
on.
before you're worried about
Right.
5 degrees of timing on your motor.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would say if you've bought a motor out of the I have seen a lot of motors out of the box that the timing was all jacked up.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm not
just
saying
because it's a
doesn't
brand new
happen.
motor doesn't
for
mean
sure.
the timing is spot on or that it could not be optimized. From like a top tier supplier, it better damn well be good out of the box.
Well, when you're talking the $200 motors,
Well, if it's certified, the
Yeah.
certified ones.
you know,
yeah.
the certified, the
but I've seen
R1s,
them come
whatever.
bad too, though,
But
and not be that impressive.
that's where having those tools is useful because you have a way of checking it and knowing what you have. Or talk to me.
I once bought a regular RevTech motor for my F1, and it was faster than a certified one that somebody had in their F1.
Yeah, I'm not saying. Yeah, it can happen.
You know what I mean?
I
Well,
mean,
and
certified is really just the ceramic bearings and the aluminum screws, really.
it's based on batching.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that's maybe you guys may not understand. When you buy a certified motor, it's whatever, top 5% motor, right? Out of that batch. So it may be that if they're still making that motor a year from now and the manufacturing process gets a little better, blah, 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 that the motors that are brand new coming out that are the exact same certified motor, they may be better
Than the one.
than the 5% from a year ago. Or, you may have a bad batch where the superstars aren't that super.
Right.
But again, like I said, the repeatability on these motors should be pretty good,
What's the
especially since most of them are coming out of the same factory.
what is the longest you should go with your motor before you should replace it, or you should?
Ooh. I ran my monster horsepower Trinity for 2 or 3 seasons.
Really
It
depends
wasn't-
on the heat, though.
Yeah, and that's why I say don't run the motor hotter than, say, 130-ish. The more heat and the more heat cycles you put on the motor, that magnet is going to fade. If you're coming off at 150 every time, it's going to fade, over its life. It's going to fade a lot faster than if it comes off at 110, 120.
Hmm.
So cycles are bad. So Fumi told me that, I think it was on road. Some of the like super duper pro drivers would put a brand new rotor in their motor before the main.
Damn.
So
That's
you know,
dedication.
So then, should I have a winter motor and a summer motor?
Yes.
My-
What are you even talking about over there? You're gonna have a whole. You can be 3-4 motors past that by the time we get to summer.
my OCD says
have you ever
probably,
have
yeah.
you ever worn out a motor?
Yes.
Well, maybe you forgot to plug in a fan or something.
No. Yes.
You change your motor
Long
every
pause.
month anyway because it's
Yeah.
something different.
Well, so if you're always playing, then it kind of like
Owens just has
that
a
problem
disease.
fixes itself. But yeah, if you've got a motor that you're running in the summer that's going to see higher temps, if you've got if you have like, this is my precious, my winter motor, like it's good and it never gets hot. If that motor is still going to be the current motor next year, you might want to protect it,
Most likely no. I'll probably
Or-
sell the
I'll have
motor.
an
Or-
entirely new setup after.
or
that.
accept the reality that, you know what,
right down
maybe
to the charger.
maybe it's dead this summer.
No, I keep the charger. I have the same charger for years.
Yeah, it's like want some cooler.
I need a new
No,
charger.
I've been using that MIDI, the i8.
I think it's X6.
Yeah, whatever it is. But I've been running that for years since it came out.
Well, it's still one of the better ones.
Well,
I need to get a new charger.
Yes, you do.
Mine's.
I got two. You want to buy one?
Well, I got to see what all the pros here have.
I'll get what the fast guys got.
So,
we can't get what you got then.
ouch.
Ooh, they're just making themselves up tonight.
Yeah, this is bad.
But
We're all taking a beating.
I think that probably about covers it tonight. Yeah.
That's all I had.
Yeah. So that's Tyler P special on motor analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, it was somewhat coherent.
We'll have some more stuff about it. Tyler's got those machines and stuff, so we'll definitely have more videos out about that and stuff. But yeah, Tyler's gonna get. I don't know. You're gonna get more into the motor tuning and take motors in for a fee, of course, a fee. No.
Can you fix motors?
I don't know what's wrong with it.
I have 2 project motors that Mr. Clokey provided me.
Can I have a 10.5
I've yet to dig
Yeah.
into.
that stopped working? It was I was running in my stadium truck in the JC race, and it died.
Bring it in, give it to me.
All right.
My guess is that this is going to tell me that your stator is
Can you fix my stator?
no. When a stator goes, the stator's gone. Chuck it, which really means the motor's dead.
Rest in peace,
But-
10-5.
Can I get a
Um,
warranty?
So what?
To buy
I don't warranty other people.
You can buy the extended warranty. It's $100.
So to your question,
The motor was 80.
what I'm probably going to start doing, like up till now, I've been doing it all for free, to help people and
To learn.
to get data.
Sure.
The best thing to have is this huge data set of what looks good and what does not look good. I'm probably eventually going to stop doing them for free for everybody all the time.
Sounds like a good business model.
Because it's, yeah, right. Because it does take a fair, like if, to do these checks is not that terrible. So if I find that your motor is dead, like right off the bat, I'm not going to.
Tyler, you don't have to justify it. This equipment ain't free. It takes a lot of time.
It's not, but
And if you want the good motor, you're going to pay Tyler P to do it.
running a motor on the dyno does take time. It's a lot of trial and error and playing around. So
Right. So it ain't free.
if I do start telling people a number, it's going to be modest. It's going to be more just out of
Tyler P's already shooting
respect
himself
for
in
my
the foot.
time. But
I think
I'll
you
burn that bridge when I get there.
I think you should charge $50 to $75 a motor.
I don't know that that's feasible.
The whole motor's like $100. I was thinking like 20 or 30.
That's kind of where my mind is.
Yeah. 75.
Well, you can scare off the people who just want to waste his time.
Well, $30 is $30, Olin. You should know that.
Maybe it'll be like, so I'll do what we do at work, where if you send us in something, if it immediately is like garbage and falls out, like I immediately get a bad test result,
It's over.
$5, $10.
Okay.
If I make it all the way to the end and I tune the motor and you want me to tune the motor, $20, $25, whatever.
Okay.
It'll be a tiered approach.
Tiered.
I don't know.
We're still working on that.
It's very much ad hoc.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, I think we're good. Yes. Anything else?
Mini Nats.
Mini Nats podcast is next week, so you guys can check that out with Dean and Jeff. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, it is. That should be cool.
But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll be back next week, of course. Appreciate all the support. Check the events list down below, the merch down below, and check out the channel. I got some other cool videos on there
Share,
too.
like,
Like, subscribe, tell a
Comment.
friend, tell your mom, son, everything. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.